Hi, welcome. It's 2022. I can't believe it. We're here in our third year of Talking Taylor. We're so excited. The company is busy preparing for City Center coming up this month. Oh, it's March already. But we wanted to bring you a special Talking Taylor with Larry Keigwin today. So excited to have him. Let's add him on now.
Hello.
Hi, we did it. Cool.
We did it. It's a miracle.
This
Modern
is always the
miracle.
scariest part for me. This is worse than going on stage.
Uh,
Hi, Larry. How are you? Can you hear me? Oh, no.
I'm good. You're
Having some
breaking
technical
up a little bit.
difficulties. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Maybe we're better now.
Better.
Okay, good. Hi, how are you? Good.
I'm
So,
good. I yeah.
yeah. I think we must have a delay here, so I'm going to wait. But what we're doing here is we just wanted to chat with you about Rush Hour, the first dance that was made for the Paul Taylor Commissions project, and the first dance that we are restaging that we're going to be performing at City Center here in March.
It's true. We're bringing it back. I think it premiered, correct me if I'm wrong, in 2017 at Lincoln Center. And we're bringing it back March 25th, 27th, and 30th at New York City Center. And of course, you know how to get your tickets. You go on New York City Center's website and you look March 25th, 27th, and 30th. And I will be honest with you, I will be there on the 25th and the 27th. So if you want to, meet and greet at intermission. But it's exciting. I'm thrilled. It's fun when a dance has a life beyond the premiere, and so
Yeah,
I'm very grateful for the opportunity.
awesome. We're so excited. Program B for all that need to know. But Larry, let's go back to the beginning. What was it like when you first got the call, the offer, as it were, to be the first choreographer to make a work on Paul Taylor's company other than Paul Taylor?
Oh my gosh, it was completely thrilling. Life is a series of auditions, and this was an audition I didn't even ask for. And so it was such a blessing. And I've always admired Paul Taylor's work. I've always admired the dancers. And at the time I was creating Rush Hour, I was friendly with a lot of the dancers. I took ballet classes with Trust Novak and a bunch of the other dancers. So they felt like siblings or cohorts. And so it was very it was very synergistic. Is that a word?
Yeah,
Synchronistic. There it
yeah.
is.
I think both. Um, no, definitely like you could tell that you came in and you had friends, but I think that's what makes your process so wonderful is that you come in with this big old ball of energy and put everybody, because I think from a dancer standpoint, it was scary for them because they've had their entire careers with one person. So to have you come in and put them all at ease was such an amazing thing.
hmm I think about that often. I think that exactly what you just said, that putting people at ease is almost the first step in choreographing because it's so collaborative. I'm going to rely on the dancers to help generate materials and ideas. So it's not just my vocabulary, but their vocabulary, and they're only going to contribute if they feel comfortable and trusted, right? So that is step number one. And I love working with groups, partly because it is collaborative, and so the more people I have in the room, the more vocabulary we're going to generate, and the more I can edit.
Mm. So how did the dance begin? Did you start by teaching them phrases? Did you start with having them make up material? How did it start?
It definitely started with teaching them phrases, just so that they can get a sense of my style, how I like to move, my energy. And then I think we probably started improvising right away, just like, let's get in a circle and throw out adjectives and manipulating the phrases that I had taught them. But, we played around with imagery. The Rush Hour is obviously inspired by New York sidewalks. And, I'm constantly inspired by the urban energy and pedestrian life. But it also was inspired by a sculpture I saw at the National Arts Center titled Rush Hour by George Siegel.
Hmm.
And that it just spoke to me. And so I ran with it.
Nice.
Mhm.
Yeah, what is there was the Tetris phrase, I think is what it is. You see it a lot that it comes in where people are walking and there's a lot of pulling back, that almost like very New Yorker, like get out of my way, I'm coming through kind of action was important.
Yeah, to me, that is any sort of competitive rush. It can be ambition. It can be anything that the audience really wants to think of it. Um, but I liked the game Tetris as a child, and so did my dad. And so I would build just a template of bodies moving forward in space, like a Tetris game. That's how we came up with that. And every work I make, the next work is an evolution of the previous work. So I was stealing from myself right and left, and I basically just everything I could pull out of my toolkit, we exercised in the rehearsal room. It was a 6 week process, which is super generous, right? And I'd say for the first 3 weeks we played, and I didn't feel compelled to set anything until well, I'm exaggerating. I didn't feel compelled, and also the music, which was newly composed, was not written completely. So there's a juxtaposition between idling and playing, but it was happy times.
Yeah, I remember that. I should say that I stepped in for a very small bit of the process the first time around. I filled in for an injury. But I remember at that point, I think you had a little bit of a sample from Adam Crystal is your composer for the piece.
Hmm.
And then you were also using other music too, like a Max Richter, Vivaldi kind of score. Um,
Yep.
and do you find that more interesting to use other music and then change it, or do you have to go back? Was Is that interesting to you?
Yeah, well, there's a luxury with a newly composed score because I can have that dialogue with the composer. And so for me, I was just interested in doing trial and error, like trying a lot of different music out, and that brings certain different energy from the dancers, and you move differently to different music, obviously. But then I could see what was resonating, what was the glue, and then
Hmm.
I could communicate that to Adam, the composer.
Right.
Yeah.
Um, you also made the decision to use the full company right when we started. So there's 16 dancers in the company, and there are 16 dancers on stage in Rush Hour.
Hmm.
Was that the first time that you had worked with a modern dance company of that size? I know that your company is
Mm.
smaller in general. Was that a different
Yeah.
thing for you?
No, I think I started working with large numbers. I think maybe with my Bolero project, Bolero
Right,
NYC, which was
right.
actually, I think, 35 people, pedestrians, again, of all different
Mm,
ages and ability, from the age of like literally 1 years old to maybe 75.
right.
That's a different story. We're talking about Rush Hour. And but with Rush Hour, oh, also at Juilliard, I started working with
Oh,
about 22 dancers,
wow.
and I kind of really enjoyed it. I kind of understood quickly how to keep them moving in and out of the space. And when you have 22, 16 people in the room, they're all looking at you. They're all looking, what's next? What's next? And so you want to utilize them all. And it just made a lot of sense in terms of building, pedestrian traffic of New York to have that larger number.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and eventually, I think you started off with working with everybody in the room very much in like a group process. But then I think
Hmm.
later on, you ended up maybe pulling back and creating some duets and quartets in a smaller group.
Yeah.
Why were you interested in working in a smaller kind of thing? What was the difference there?
Yeah, I mean, because I wanted to capture different moments of
Mm,
intimacy and not just moments of mass.
yeah.
Certainly, we wake up, we go to the subway, we see lots and lots of people, but I wanted to capture moments that were more personal. And so, and also maybe bounce back and forth between an interior life and an exterior life. And I think that's something that's very interesting about New York, is that we have such strong interior exterior lives, you know, and a lot of our life is outside on the sidewalk, in a gym and a studio with other people. And so I felt need to find more intimate moments, duets, some solos. And I think just compositionally, it makes sense to not have everybody on stage all the time.
Totally, totally.
Mm-hmm.
The piece is, it's a killer. I can say now, doing it. We were rehearsing it with Mass there for a second, and I was just like, I'm gonna pass out. But I wanted to know about that sense of energy that you built within the piece, especially the last section.
Mm-hmm.
Was that something that, was that around the time when the full score came in that you were like, oh, I know how to build this where it's gonna, I'll show it twice, but with a little bit of difference? And I mean, it's breathless, the end of it. I have to say,
Oh,
it's like an action movie. It's my
thank you.
favorite part.
Yeah, I agree. The third movement is my favorite as well. Um, but can I just go back for one
Yeah,
second?
go
Are
ahead.
you guys maskless now?
We are maskless. Yes, we're
Oh, that's
rehearsing maskless,
wonderful.
thankfully.
Oh my God, I miss seeing faces so much, and what a joy. So that's great. I can't wait to see you guys all maskless. For some of you, it'll be the first time I see your faces. But anywho, so the question was about what? About
The question was about the last section, building that
oh
that
yeah.
intensity.
Yeah, so the Adam Crystal gave me some samples of music before I even started choreographing, and that last section I took from a sample of his, and that was my favorite. So I knew to save that for last, sort of like let's save dessert to the end.
Yeah,
And so but that was the piece of music that was speaking to me the most, right? And then I knew I wanted to start in a similar fashion, but maybe not as full force. And then I knew the middle I needed to quiet down because I didn't want the audience also to feel exhausted.
right.
And so I stuck that third movement at the end. And yeah, it is, I don't know how long that section is. It's maybe 4 minutes, but it is
Yeah.
pretty relentless. And it just keeps going. And I think, not to pat myself on the back, but I will, but I think that there's Adam Crystal, the composer, and I complement each other well in that section.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's definitely, it's amazing. It's amazing to be in the theater. I remember vividly being in the theater and like the rush that everybody felt from seeing it. And then of course we have to talk about the lighting, Christian Taylor's lighting, because that's a whole other component that is just so brilliantly exciting.
Yeah, you know, and we text so quickly. For those of you who don't know, the Taylor Company, and I'm not sure if you're still doing, they sometimes tech out of town, which is interesting. Yeah. They tech at Purchase College, just because in New York City they don't have as much room to do that, much time. So anyway, so I think we had a day at Purchase to tech it, which was amazing. But yeah, Clifton brought so much to it. The whole grid, the floor grid, and that's another thing. When I would say for the first, couple of weeks, or at least for the first 4 weeks of this creation, I was calling the work grid. Right. So it was really the floor template was a grid, and then somehow I brought Rush Hour into it because I wanted an emotional thing, and grid was more abstract. And anywho, the Clifton brought so much magic to it, really, as did Fritz in costumes, and it's wonderful when the collaborators align, and I felt like we did.
Yeah, my before we get into the revival of it, I did want to talk about I know for you, I think it was, obviously you've talked about it was a little bit thrilling and exciting, but probably trepidatious to choreograph on the Taylor Company. But from your experience of watching the Taylor dancers for their first challenge of working with a new choreographer, and I know that the process also wasn't in one 6-week chunk. I think you came for a little bit and then maybe stepped away and came back. But what was it like to see them kind of step through a process that was probably different from Mr. Taylor's that they had worked for a little while?
I mean, I had heard that there was maybe a little apprehension. I didn't really feel that so much. I didn't feel it in the room. I think you can get a sense of people's personality very quickly, and dancers are incredibly intuitive and kinesthetically so bright. And I feel like there was a sort of immediate trust
Yeah.
in the studio, and they quickly learned that it was going to be a playful process. Um, but also I felt very comfortable. You know, I could also have been very nervous or apprehensive, and I usually am. The night before I start a new project, it's like, oh God, I mean, how I'm gonna be 50, everybody. I'm turning 50. How many dances have I made? How many years have I been making dances? And I still get nervous before the first rehearsal of a new project. It's the same, you know, the first day of a job or first day of school. And then literally, I want to say within minutes that sheds, and you're just in your sweet spot. And I'm also a dancer, so where do dancers work? We work in the studio, and dancers are all over the world. No, you know, that's what we hold similar.
Right.
I really do speak English. I apologize.
No worries. You're doing great.
Okay.
I just, so yes, it was great. It was wonderful. The dance premiered. I don't think I've ever seen ovations as like immediate as we've seen with it. The company, I think, performed it 2 years at Lincoln Center, definitely did it at ADF. And I could be wrong about the other places that it toured to, but it did come out of our rep for a little bit. And now you are actually the first time that we're doing a fairly major revival of one of our commissions, which is very exciting.
Mm-hmm.
I think currently we might have 3 original cast members, if I'm counting correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Apuzzo, Christina Lynch Markham, and Madeline Ho, who I think was the most junior member when it was created.
Exactly.
So what is this like coming back to the work with a brand new cast, really a pretty new Taylor company even too,
Mm-hmm.
just this 5 years later?
Mm-hmm. Oh, it is amazing. You know, well, I said I'm so grateful to revisit it, but so much has changed. That work was created pre-pandemic. Now we're
Right.
hopefully, fingers crossed, leaning towards post-pandemic. So there's so much to unpack just in that. There's a whole crew of new dancers who bring new life and new energy and new thought to it and new character, right? Totally new character. In fact, there was Michelle Fleet's character, which was a female dancer, is now a male dancer. So there was an opportunity to re-look at casting, and we did, and so that's fun. And also, what I think is also fun is it's a different theater, right? I get very attached to where work premieres and how it premieres in a particular theater. But and so this premiered at Lincoln Center at the Koch Theater, but now we'll be at New York City Center, which is a theater that I love, and a theater where I first saw the Taylor Company, right? So that brings me a warm fuzzy to have that full circle. Yeah, and it really, it's coming to life, but it comes to life on the night of the show, right? And that's where the magic is, and that's why if you're tuning in, you have to get your darn tickets.
Please book your tickets now. Come through. It's going to be great. I'm so excited. We're actually going to kind of do like a little bit of we're going to relive it because we're going to tech it out of town again. We're going to remount it at Purchase. So we're going to get to do the thing. So everybody's going to like show up and, you know, get to experience the grid for the first time again, which I'm so excited by.
Mm-hmm.
I want to open it up to questions from all of our viewers. If anybody has a question, write in the comments, or you can use the little bubble question mark thing at the bottom to please tune in and ask Larry a question. But I just wanted to, I'll start us off. I did go back and serendipitously, I think maybe a year or two before you made Rush Hour, you had worked on a commission from Vale using 4 of the New York City ballet dancers with your own company, one of whom is our other choreographer this season,
Oh.
Lauren Lovett. So what was the experience like of collaborating with city ballet dancers in your own company versus working with Taylor, and also, you know, working with Lauren before she was, you know, our new choreographer du jour?
Mm. So I would say, in all honesty, there's even more of a first day nerves,
Right.
you know, like, because it has city ballet dancers have such a aura and package around them. But again, like I said, once you're in the studio, things you find the common denominator. But that was, you know, special. They are special dancers. It was
Totally.
Joaquin Deleuze, Robbie Fairchild, Tyler Peck, and Lauren Lovett. And is that true? Oh, that was another one, but almost like that. And I remember Lauren. I think she said this. I hope I'm not outing her on this, but I think she said that that was the first time she danced barefoot.
Oh, really?
And I loved that. You know, I was like, oh, I love that. This is her first time dancing barefoot in my dance. That's wonderful. And you know, it was wonderful. And Lauren was such a joy to work with. And
She's wonderful.
yeah, brought such grace to the work. It was canvas that I created. Yeah. That's the end of that story.
Our friend Laura Halzak has written in. She goes, "Your work is so spatial. Who were some of your earliest choreographic inspirations?"
Oh my gosh. Oh Lord. My early inspirations were, you know, the teachers I was working with, other dancers, choreographers that I worked with in college, Mark Dendy, who I danced with for years, Doug Elkins, Doug Barone, everybody that I went to the theater and saw, Trisha Brown, Paul Taylor, Jerome Robbins, Twyla Tharp, the list just keeps going on and on, you know, and I can find inspiration anywhere. I can certainly find it at the theater, and I do, especially now. You know, there's something about being a little bit older. I used to watch dance and be jealous that I wasn't dancing it, or I used to watch dance and be jealous of the choreographer. I used to watch dance and be consumed with jealousy, really. But now I feel very comfortable viewing dance, and so I find even more inspiration. And I often say I find it on the street. I find it, you know, animals, a cat, whatever. You just have to keep your antenna out and be available for inspiration, and it will strike you.
Yeah. And I do have to say that listening to you talk about all your inspirations, Paul too was at the center of that, where he wasn't only one thing. He was always, it was Tudor, and it was Graham, and it was Balanchine. It was all these things that he was very much interested in. And I saw that sense of playfulness, and like anything can go in this piece of ours, in your process too, which is just wonderful.
So one other thing, it's also maybe inspired not only by the choreographer, but by a work they create, right?
Right.
So there could be one work that someone creates that really sticks with you, and that I find inspiring.
Yeah. Well, and you guys approached it differently too, because I would say that Paul's dream of urbanism can be seen in a dance called Last Look, which, if anybody's seen Last Look, is terrifying. It's like, it's probably the darkest work we have in rep. Whereas I feel like there is a bit of a dark undertone to Rush Hour, but I don't think that it ever goes into a place of horror per se, as much as kind of propulsion, which is interesting. But I do remember that there's a little bit of something where I think Rob Kleinendors's character was stalking somebody, and it's still in the piece just for a little bit, where you can kind of see him following another dancer who's unaware of him kind of being in the background. So an Easter egg for people to look out for.
Yeah. And then there is that last moment, not to be a spoiler, but it was Parisa and Francisco who have a quick fleeting fight that just crosses downstage right before it ends. And I think that could be perceived as dark. And I love how Christina and who is it, John, are doing it. It's great.
Yeah, totally. It's rich. There's not enough adjectives to describe it. It's so exciting. Larry, tell us, what else are you working on? Your company is back. You are making dances. Where, other than coming to see us in City Center, is Keigwin & Co. going to be at?
I will be honest, that weekend, 25th, 26th, 27th, it's very busy, which is fun. I don't know why everybody decided that was the weekend to do their show. But so I have 3 fun things happening that weekend. The Paul Taylor Company at City Center. I have a new trio that I'm just on the second day of rehearsal that will premiere at Symphony Space, part of their literary wall-to-wall festival, which is fun because I'm sourcing from a short story, which is very different and new for me. And then I also have a work that's premiering, a group work at George Mason University that weekend, which unfortunately I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to go see.
So many places to go.
I know. Wouldn't that be fun? And then in April, I have a fun project at the Southern Utah Museum of Art, where I'm working with a collaborator, Jason Hackenworth, who builds really outrageous, otherworldly balloon sculptures, and he's going to make human balloon costumes.
Wow.
And we're going to do a site-specific work for the museum in April, and then maybe some downtime after that.
Good.
Yeah.
Needed. Sounds
Yeah.
like. Everyone, if you would please, again, City Center. It's the last 2 weeks of March 24th, 31st. Larry, remind me again, you're on the 25th, the
27th, and the 30th.
Perfect. Program B, Rush Hour, will be premiering a new work by Lauren Levitt, redoing Larry Keigwin's Rush Hour, which you have to see, as well as Taylor classics from our repertory. Larry, thank you so much for joining us today and being so generous with your thoughts and stories.
Thanks for inviting me, and have a great night.
It was wonderful. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you soon. See you at City Center. Bye.
Bye.